Hello, this is Erica Norton, and I'm the founder of Perfect Legal Video. I'm very excited to have with us today Attorney Nicole Reeves Lavallee. She owns a family and real estate law firm out in the Worcester area, and she and her team are amazing at what they do. So every week we come to you with a new topic. Today, we are going to talk about if you're thinking of going through a divorce and you want to just try to prevent it, you know, what is it going to take? If you were to go to counseling, how long should it take for you to be able to turn things around? Welcome to the show, Nicole, and how are you today?
Hello, welcome. Thank you.
So, do you often see people try to go through counseling before continuing on with the divorce process, or maybe not?
I don't see them. I see them where they've told me, "Oh, I've been to counseling," and then they tell me how many sessions. Every once in a while, we'll go, "Well, we have another session next week. I'll get back to you, and then we'll kind of figure it out." So sometimes they're during. They never come to me beforehand. It's always either during or after counseling that they come to see me.
And how long do people usually try on average?
I think it depends on where they are emotionally. If both people are really going to try to make it work, then I would say realistically, you're going to be looking at least 9 months on average. It could be longer, again, depending on how many sessions you're having, but a lot of times the counseling will be closer in time with one another. So you'll be doing weekly or twice a month counseling or something of that nature. So obviously, the more that you're going, the more you're going to get out of it, assuming you're actually willing to make that effort.
Wow, that's an amazing perspective. I feel like too, it depends on what happened with the relationship. Do you see certain incidents are easier to get over, certain situations are easier to get over than others? Like I would imagine that infidelity is a pretty tough one to get over, especially if it's been an ongoing thing over the years. Um, I mean, what do you think are some of the easier situations to get over versus some of the hard ones?
The easier ones seem to be when you have a blended family, because it's usually you're favoring your children, or you're treating my children differently, and it just becomes a conflict, right? Because we need to have the same ground rules. We need to have the same playing field, because now I'm getting resentful because why aren't my kids as good as your kids? So if it's something like that, that's a lot easier to deal with. Sometimes when you're dealing with money issues, that's another really contentious one, along with the adultery. Um, just the absenteeism of a spouse. They're always working. They're tired. They come home. They don't really have time for you. Like, enough. Like, I got things to do. So it's those types of things where it's really not a problem. It's just we need to do an attitude adjustment. We need to understand what your love language is and what your love language is, and how can we make it work? How can we better the two of you as a couple? So a lot of times you'll have little things that are bothering me. The oh my God, he's doing that again. Pet peeves that you're just like, enough. I can't deal with it anymore. And there's really nothing wrong with the marriage. It's I need to have another way to figure out how to work with this, because that's who I married.
It's funny because do you see some of those things as red flags in the beginning of a relationship where you meet someone and they're paying you some special attention. They're making the time to go to dinner and do fun things. But they're kind of like taking breaks for the phone. They're workaholics. You can see little things, or maybe they drink a ton and they're like I don't know, they like to stay out too late, and you're doing it just because it's exciting and you're dating, but you know that that's not really you. You like to be home. Some of those little red flags that you saw at the beginning when you were just getting to know someone and they were easy to ignore because they're spending some special time with you because you're new and fun, uh, you might get exhausted of those things later on in the relationship. And it's it's just who they are. So you have to really decide if this is the way you want to live or not.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that, you either were too in love to notice or you noticed it, but again, whatever, I can live with that. And then all of a sudden you're like, no, I can't. So it is one of those things that, maybe sometimes you're like, oh, I could live with that before, but now, oh my God, it makes me crazy. So there's definitely a dynamic there. Obviously, the biggest thing is to have a conversation. And sometimes, your spouse is just going to go, whatever. And that's not the appropriate response. And that's when you go, maybe we do need to go to the next step because I do love you and I do want to spend my life with you, but you're driving me nuts.
And sometimes people don't realize that, them staying out late isn't because people just aren't able to communicate what's annoying to them. And there are some people that are so afraid of conflict that if they could just have a simple conversation, maybe someone could limit the amount of times they work late in a week or go out with their friends or, maybe they drink on the weekends. I don't know what it is, but I just know my mom used to get so annoyed with my stepfather because he would go in the garage. I mean, this is down south. He would go in the garage with a case of beer. And yes, I think he probably was an alcoholic. But I mean, he would go out, he would just sit by himself. He's not causing any trouble. He's not going out. He's not driving. That would really annoy her.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, is it annoying her because he's not spending time with her? Or is it just because, it's you're ignoring me and you're not paying attention? Is it because I do think you have a problem and I'm too afraid to say it? Or is it because, well, you love the beer more than me? I mean, there's so many different scenarios there that really you got to kind of get to the root of why it's bothering you, because really that's what she in this particular circumstance needs to figure out. Why is it bothering her? And then she needs to articulate that to him in a non-confrontational way, and not demanding, and just saying, look, this is really bothering me and this is the reason why, so that they actually can have a productive conversation. Because maybe it's just like, well, yeah, but I really just want to have, half hour of time alone. Okay, but do you have to go to the garage to do it? Do you have to have a beer? Oh, no, I don't. So again, that starts of the conversation, and maybe the answer is yes, but again, that revolves around having that conversation to begin with.
And another thing you have to ask is, like, why does he feel like he needs to go to the garage and drink a case of beer? And is it because he's disassociating from the situation? He's really unhappy with stuff that she's doing. Maybe he could give her some ideas, and I guarantee that that is the case. Um, they now live apart. They're still married, but they live in separate states, like really far away from each other, and it's just on paper for the insurance for her. So it's it works for them right now because they don't have to be together, but she can use the insurance and he doesn't have to do anything that she says. So he can drink as many beers as he wants.
He can, but again, if they want to actually try to work it out, they need to have that conversation. And sometimes it's, oh my God, I can't believe you're bringing that up again. When are you ever going to let it go? And that's where you go, okay, maybe we need somebody professional that's going to teach us ways to not, have a tone, have comments that are going to be derogatory or demeaning or incite confrontation with the other party. But, that's the reason why people go, is so that they can learn better ways and better themselves as people. So it all depends on what the ultimate goal is.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And it depends on how much you want to put into it too. I mean, if you're just done, none of that is probably going to work. It's if your mindset is that it's over, or if your mindset is that, I don't know how I can live my life without this person, but I'm just so unhappy. I don't know, maybe there's a chance that you could do something about it.
Yeah, generally the people that are coming to see me, and they're saying, oh, well, we've been twice before. And I said, well, how did it go? And it's always one or two things. I really don't know that I should give it another shot. He or she isn't really interested, and all they want to do is argue with me. Or, hey, the therapist has mentioned maybe I should have a go bag. Okay, maybe that should tell you something when the therapist says things like that. So, you really got to look at what is actually being said. Is it being productive? Again, if you're going in with the mindset of one of you, and it doesn't matter who it is, but if one of you is going in with that mindset of, that person is never going to change, or that person needs to change 100% before I'll even consider, going back to them, or whatever the case may be, you're not going in for the right reasons. You might as well just call it quits, because really you're not making an effort. You're just wasting fees now. But if you go in with that mindset, 2 sessions is never going to be enough. I can guarantee you that. So even if it's a nominal, just he's driving me crazy type mentality, you need more than 2 sessions, because again, you need to wrap your brain around, okay, how can I say this better? How can I do this better? How can I become a better person? Because again, if you want it to work, it's about you being a better person, not the other person being a better person. The other person has to want the exact same thing to be a better person.
You have to go into it thinking it's 100% your fault. You both do. And then you have to be willing to fix it. I mean, it's not more than that. Everyone wants to play the blame game. If that's what you're doing, it's just never going to get fixed. But I am amazed with like what you said, like, oh, it's just going to take 1 or 2 sessions. How is something that maybe lasted years or a decade of annoying the other person, or and them things that they did annoy you, how is that going to be solved? It's not a magic wand that they have. You actually have to dig deep. Like, how many people actually that you talk to actually have that idea that it's just going to be 1 or 2 sessions?
Well, I think the people that have the 1 or 2 sessions are coming to me going, I'm done. I'm done with this 1 or 2. I know it's over. And that's good. If you've learned that, then let's good. Let's move on. Let's figure out what to do and go from there. But the people that really are coming to me with 1 or 2 sessions and think it's okay, the reality is, think about it. A habit is going to take you at least 30 days to break. You're not breaking it. You can start changing in about 7 days after consistently doing something, but you're not going to change an entire habit until it's at least 30 days old. So don't go in there with the assumption that, oh, well, 1 or 2 sessions is perfectly fine and I'm cured. No, because the reality is that might stop the bleeding for today, but that wound is going to open up again, and it's going to be a lot worse, unfortunately.
Well, the thing too that people don't think about is that therapy, if you've never done it, it can be just grueling and exhausting, and especially if you don't like conflict, and that's why you never talked about it all these years. Now you're sitting in a room and somebody's asking you these uncomfortable questions, and the person is just irritating you and coming up with things and maybe blaming you, and it's yeah, or and vice versa. Maybe you're blaming them and you're irritating them, and you're supposed to be getting it all out and being honest. But the toll that it takes on some people, just like the end of a relationship, sometimes it's just better if people do move on, because your health is important. And if it's starting to affect the way your health, like just your daily life, and it may not be worth going through all that. But for some people it is worth it. So you just really have to judge whether you can handle that or not.
Absolutely. And again, it, even if marriage counseling doesn't work, I'm going to say you're going through the divorce, do it for yourself. Do individual counseling, move on from there. Make yourself better. Because again, even if you can't work with that person that you've loved at one point, you've got a life to live and you've got a family that you need to support. So the reality is, work on yourself, work on bettering yourself. And more importantly, at some point, you're going to go, see, this is what you gave up. And everyone has that moment. And, it's a very empowering moment to have. So you're not going to do it on your own, and you're not going to do it without the help of other people. So rely on them.
And two, having individual therapy for yourself, like you were saying, to work on yourself and to feel better about yourself. That confidence, I mean, it's really you'll never love anyone the way you can love yourself. And no one will ever love you the way that you could love yourself. And so many people don't. So many people have somehow gotten in the habit of just taking the blame for everything and feeling bad. And, life sometimes takes terrible turns. It's just, they can think of all the mistakes that they made, but, you can just draw a line in the sand and move forward from there. You can't change the past. You can only change what you're doing right now and hopefully have a better future. And if more people thought that way, maybe it would solve their problems in their marriage. And maybe they would just decide that it's better off on their own. Sometimes people just really aren't as good of a match as they thought they were originally. And sometimes people change over the years.
Absolutely. People generally don't have affairs or go out and spend money and hide it from their spouse unless there's still some type of underlying problem going on. Whether it's you, whether it's them, really doesn't matter. There's still a problem going on. And that's what we have to figure out is what is that problem and how can I better myself as a result of either this learning experience or my actions.
I have an interesting question for you. Do you think that the time someone is together correlates with the likelihood that they could fix the situation if their marriage is going south?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, the reality is that could go either way. It depends on where your mindset is at. I think the more years into a relationship, the more likely it is that you want it to work and that you wanted to fix things. And I've devoted all this time, but by the same token, I see other people that are, oh my God, if I have to live another day with this person, I'm going to kill myself. So it really kind of depends on where your mind is at. When you're done, you're done. And unfortunately, it really kind of depends on when that's happening. But obviously, the more life that you've had together, the more likely it is that you're going to want to continue that. But if it's been a miserable 20 years, then no, it's been miserable. But if it's been, hey, mostly good for 20 years and the last year just kind of sucked, well, then yeah, you're going to try to make it work. So it really, again, depends on what that relationship has looked like throughout that relationship. And, the other people is, I have clients that come in and they're like, yeah, I've been married for like a month. Okay. Have you really given it a shot? So, you definitely have the extremes. And the problem with the short term relationship is they're not interested in doing any type of counseling.
You do hear about that. Like you hear about that with celebrities sometimes. They got married for a month and then it's over. I feel like they didn't take enough time to get to know the person before they got married, and then all of a sudden they saw some things they didn't like. Um, I think another important thing too is if you want to fix your marriage, you have to make sure that you're not doing things that are really going to get in the way. Like, let's say you have a side piece. Like, let's say that your spouse doesn't like to be intimate. Let's say that someone is cheating and they're only doing it because, they really love their spouse, but they need to have this other part. Let's say you came up with a gambling addiction and nobody knows. I mean, you hear about that. You hear about people haven't paid their mortgage and the spouse never even knew. And then all of a sudden, they had to say something because the bank was going to put them under foreclosure and kick them out on Monday. I mean, there's just a lot of things. Like, what if you're secretly drinking? What if there's a million things that people can be addicted to that if you're having those issues, even if your spouse doesn't know, I feel like people somewhere in their head always kind of know. They know something's wrong. I mean, I don't know. Do you see this where people have like secrets that come out? Because you hear everything.
I think you know that something's going on. The question is, what is it? And how do I know? And it's like, something's just not right. Okay, great. Can you be more articulate about what it is? I don't know. He's just off. Okay, well, how so? Well, he's been distant. Okay. And so again, I'm just kind of doing the okay and then and okay. And I mean, I could go through those questions for 5 hours, and the simple answer is, okay, have you ever asked him what's going on? Oh no. Why would I do that? Okay, let's start there. So we do run the gamut and we do go through all of those things. And the reality is, it starts with you. You need to be able to answer the question. I mean, I can ask all the questions in the world, but if your answer is constantly, I don't know, or I don't know, maybe it's just something's different. Okay, great. So again, then it becomes my game of, let me look through all of the discovery for the needle in a haystack that may or may not show in the documentation. You know, you have somebody that goes, I'm a cash lover, I don't use credit cards, I don't use bank accounts. Okay, now what do I do? You know, and it really becomes a problem for me because I'm now the problem solver and I've got to find the pieces of the puzzle that I don't even know exist.
Cash is difficult. We know that. So, is there any advice that you have? I know this is a fun topic. I mean, it's not fun for the people going through it for sure, but it's interesting because there are so many underlying issues that you maybe don't realize until you get into therapy and you give it a good shot. Like you said, 9 months, but then it's also got to be worth it to the people. So, maybe you have some parting shots on how you know it's worth it or not, and any other advice you'd like to give on this.
I mean, I think the easy answer is do an internal deep dive on yourself. You know, what is it that brings you happiness? You know, if your answer is, I don't know that I have anything that I like about him anymore, maybe that's not the person you're supposed to be with. But, you know, again, go back to, okay, well, am I doing something? Am I projecting something? Like, am I just, because, you know, I just can't even stand him. I can't even be in the same room with him. Well, again, that's probably you projecting on him, which means he's drawing away. So, again, we need to figure out, take an internal look on yourself. What can I do? Ask, you know, your friends, hey, look, have I changed? Do I seem happy to you? You know, ask them that question. They're going to give you honest feedback and at least go, okay, well, so why do you think that I'm more miserable? What have I been saying? What have I been doing? Maybe again, they can tap into something for you. So even if you're not ready to start with a therapist, get some insight on yourself and then figure out, okay, do I really just despise this person or am I projecting what I don't like in my life onto that person? Because that's going to be the first start.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you got to do a deep dive, and it's uncomfortable, but you only have one life, so it's worth it. It's worth it to do the research within yourself to figure out if it's feasible for you to work it out with that person or not. And I mean, I have to say, divorce doesn't always mean that life's going to be easier. And sometimes you still have stress from that person, depending on if you have kids or not. But you know, you just have to pick which thing is going to be better. Like, do you want to keep living with, you know, is it just unbearable what you're living with right now versus being able to live on your own and being able to minimize that contact if the relationship is toxic for your own health, you want to minimize that.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest thing there is, you know what, don't tell me the kids don't see it. I hide it from them. No, they see it. They know it. They could probably tell you exactly when all of a sudden your mood started changing and your attitude started changing. They know that. They may not be able to articulate it, but they know it, they see it, they feel it. So you're not doing your children a service by just simply saying, "Oh, I'll stay together with him," or the kids won't know, and I'll wait until they're out of school, or whatever the case may be. Do the deep dive, make the determination, and then move on with something.
Sage advice as usual. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nicole. We really appreciate your insights and your information on all of these family law topics and real estate topics. We appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Until next week, we will look forward to seeing you again then.